Is technology at your work distracting you from actual work? Do you spend too much time troubleshooting PC or internet issues? IT Enabled can help. Our team of IT specialists can help you tackle your technology troubles and get you focused on growing your business in no time. Call to schedule your technology consultation. 936-225-3329. IT Enabled. We're here to help.
We're excited today to have Kendall Gay with us, and Kendall is the Executive Director of the Texas Forestry Museum. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everybody about your background, where'd you grow up, things like that, and then we'll start talking.
Sure. I'm from Lufkin, and I graduated from Lufkin High School, and I went to A&M, and I went in as an education major, and luckily the program I was in, they put you in the classroom the very first semester, which I just can't recommend enough, because I got into a fourth grade classroom, and I was like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. They're so high energy, and I was like, you can't have a bad day. You know, they don't understand that. Yeah. And so I thought, well, I still want to teach, but middle school is not for me. And so I was like, let's do high school, but you have to major in your subject. Okay. And so I thought, I love history, but at least at Lufkin, like a lot of the history teachers are coaches. Right. And so I thought, I was always really good at math, so let's major in math. And it turns out I didn't like math so much when I wasn't good at it, when it got to be a lot harder. Yeah. So I thought, well, you know, like, I love history, and surely if you major in something you love, you're going to find a great job after, right? And you'll be happy. Right. And it turns out that once I graduated, I realized I had no like marketable skills. I knew a lot of stuff and I could write a great paper, right. But I didn't have anything that I felt like prepared me for like a skill for a job. Right. Right. So I went to get my master's degree in public history at SFA, which is where you learn to bring history to the public. Nice. So there's a lot of like archivists or interpreters from national parks and museum workers that come through there. And I chose to come back to SFA and come home because I am also the Lufkin High School twirling sponsor. Oh, I didn't know that. I'm still, it's my 11th year this year. Oh, cool. So I, make up all the routines. We practice all year. And that was my kind of my part-time job that I was coming back to that I wanted to do. So SFA worked out really well. Yeah. And while I was doing my graduate degree for SFA, they make you do forced volunteering in some of your classes. And one of them was at the Forestry Museum. And so I kind of gotten to know the people, and I volunteered there a couple of times. And while I was there, the museum coordinator retired, and so I applied for that job and got that. And I knew that when I was going to college, the one thing I didn't want to do was I didn't want to do anything with money because my mom works in banks, and I didn't want to do anything with forestry because my dad was a forester, and I ended up doing the finances for a forestry museum. Nice. So you did both. So don't ever say you're never going to do something. Absolutely. And then a year and a half later, the director left, and I got promoted to be the director. So this is my 6th year there as director.
Wow, that's hard to believe.
Yeah. It's been a while.
It doesn't seem like it's been 6 years.
It feels like it's just been yesterday.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Well, great. Yeah. That's awesome. Always good when a hometown girl gets to come back home.
Yeah.
It's almost like you planned it that way. That was perfect.
And I know people always say like, I'm never coming back. And I said it. And
we all did, don't we?
I did too.
I guarantee that like, if you say you're never coming back, it means you're definitely coming back.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about the museum for people who've never been, which first off, if you've never been, fantastic museum. We've had multiple birthday parties there. You guys host events as well. We've had, I'm serious, I think we've had three birthday parties there for our kids. And they love it. Like they love just like running around in the little activity area and the little, my daughter loves the little playhouse where you can go in. It has all the little babies and the dresses and the food and all of that. And it's just one of their favorite places. So if you've never been, absolutely go. But tell us about the museum for those who have been.
So the Texas Forestry Association, they saw in the 50s that the industry was changing through technology and the size of companies and the way things were being done. So they wanted to start preserving the way that the industry had been during the big sawmill boom, which was like 1880 to 1930 in Texas. And so they started collecting artifacts, and I'm pretty sure they just like held them in a warehouse because they didn't open the museum until 1976. with a partnership with the Lufkin Kiwanis Club. So it's our 45th birthday this year, and we have grown over time. It was a really small museum. The executive director of the Forestry Association was the museum director for the first 10 years, and they hired their first full-time employee in the mid-'80s, which is Carol Riggs, which is a real staple in Lufkin. She made the museum what it is today, and she retired in 2007, so she was with us for a very long time. And also, as a fun note, she's the only woman in the Texas Forestry Hall of Fame that we hold at the museum. So cool. That's kind of a, I really like it when the kids notice. They're like, there's a lady.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so we're really grateful for what Carol did for the museum. And so they, over time, we've added the history wing, which has the steam engine in it. We can turn it on, although it was run by steam before. It is electrified now, so we can turn it on for visitors and let them see that. And then we also have the north wing, which has become our children's wing. It wasn't what it originally was. And then we have an urban wildscape trail. It's 0.4 miles. I call it a walking trail, so legit hikers.
It's beautiful.
Well, thank you. Legit hikers aren't disappointed.
Right.
You can see the end from the beginning. Right. But it's just like a really nice bit of forest in the city. You don't have to travel to, although it's quite close comparatively, you don't have to travel to the Davy Crockett National Forest or Angelina National Forest. You can come to our museum and have a little bit of nature. And then we have our nature Playscape, which Leadership Lufkin a couple years ago started off for us, and we've added to it. So there's we wanted things that drew kids outside and drew families outside, but wasn't a big plastic playground. So we have stepping stumps made out of tree cookies that are brightly colored. We've got a gaga ball pit, which is a huge hit with our summer camp kids, and you can check out a ball for free from the museum and bring your family and play. And then we do have our outdoor train exhibit that has our 1908 Baldwin locomotive, and then some cars and a caboose that you could go in. Then there's a depot, and then we've got our fire tower that's 110 feet tall. You can't go up in it because insurance tells us that's dangerous. But you can. We do have a fire tower cab in the children's wing, so you can play and get up in that and see all that.
Well,
Very
it's
cool.
a fantastic museum, and it's the only forestry museum in the state. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Which is crazy that we have the only forestry museum
in a state this big.
In a state this
with
giant.
as many trees as it has.
Yes.
I mean, they're mostly on this side of the state, but we have a lot of trees. But you would think there would be another one.
You
for
would
sure.
think.
So
where when are you open, and what does it cost to come to the museum?
we're open Monday through Saturday from 10 to 5, and we have free admission.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Free.
So it's a great
Can't beat
place.
that.
We have a lot of regular families that come that are local, and we even when you come in, we'll ask you questions just to kind of get to know you, and it also helps with grant requests.
Yeah.
And one of the categories is regular because there's just some families. It's not like they heard about us or social media prompted them to come. It's just because they come all the time.
We do. That's
And
us.
yeah. So we have a category called regulars, and they come all the time, and it's we find it such an important thing to offer the community, especially because Lufkin School District has such a high percentage of kids that are on free and reduced lunch, and that to offer a place where you can go for free and spend time with your family, and it doesn't cost a lot, that we just think it's a really important thing to offer our community.
Yeah.
I always loved, years ago when I worked for the Convention and Visitors Bureau, we would always put together big tours from different, communities. And one of the highlights always was getting to bring them to the Forestry Museum, because it truly is the history of what Angelina County is and how we were made and why we were made. And they just always loved it. And it was always interesting to me because we a lot of times had a lot of elderly people in those tours, and to hear the men talk about the saws that were there or things, and to hear them say, well, I used to use one of those, or my grandfather used one of those. So to be able to see them kind of journey back and talking about things that we have on display here, it was a really neat opportunity.
Yeah, we still have people that bring in things to donate. So we We have over 32,000 items in our collection. So what's on display is just the tip of the iceberg. We have 3 temperature controlled archives, and then we've got 3 other temperature controlled storerooms. Oh, wow. And we really love an artifact with a story. People are so kind and they think about us. And so sometimes they'll see things at like garage sales. And I appreciate it, but we don't need another chainsaw.
I was going to say, but you get a lot of saws.
Yes, we do. And we're just running out of space. Right. And so we have to say, you know, I really appreciate it, but we don't have the room to accept it. But man, if you bring me something with a story that's like your grandfather and you know where he worked and that he used it every day, that's like I'm a sucker for that. Yeah. Or like photos. There's a homeschool group that's holding their classes out of an administration building at the old paper mill. And so when they left, there's still stuff in the building. And so they're bringing us like boxes of photos from the paper mill. Cool. And I'll always take a photo because it takes up no room and tells such a story and in such a small amount of space.
That's right. Yeah. Well, we know that y'all were really hit hard during the pandemic. Let's talk about that. And what happened to you during those months, and then how have you transitioned out of that into where you are now?
Sure. So we closed March 16th, 2020, and we were closed for 13 months.
Wow.
We just kind of thought that we have so many things that are interactive in our museum, and especially the children's wing, which is a big part of why people come, that if we were to take all that away or rope it off, like what sort of experience would be left? Right. We wanted to maintain the memories people had and the reputation we had of their experience, and we didn't want to dilute that by offering something lesser than. So we decided that although it was a difficult time, we wanted to look back at that time and be super proud of what we accomplished. And so one of the things that we really worked on was renovating the inside of the museum. We did it in 2 parts. So the first part, we actually finished. We renovated the 3 permanent exhibit rooms. And we finished that actually spring break, March 2020. And we were able to open for spring break, and it's our busiest week. We had like 500 people come through, which was so nice to hear their feedback and see them so excited because we had worked so hard on it. And then we had to close like that very next week. No. So it wasn't super, like finished. We still had things, but it was like enough for families to come through and see it and use it. And so I just kind of feel like that was such a blessing that if we had worked so hard to have that done and then to be closed and no one got to see it, having that little bit of to hold on to was really nice. And then we requested grant money in addition because the museum then looked pretty shabby comparatively. We did all new lights, new LED lights, new paint for everything, and it just the new part looked great. That's awesome. And so we were able to refinish out the rest of the museum, including the lobby, the children's wing, and which would have been difficult having visitors to do new paint and things like that.
That's right.
So everything's new and clean.
Yeah.
Nice.
And when you have a lot of people that come through, it just kind of gets a wear on it that just happens. And so it's kind of nice that like everything's.
Well, we're gonna have
like
to come take a look at it.
Yeah.
I haven't been in there since they've done it.
I was just
Have
there.
you?
We had a birthday party there. Again, but this one was not ours. This was for somebody else, but friend of ours. But it looks fantastic.
Well, thank
you.
You
guys have done a fantastic job and one of our favorite spots. So, tell us a little bit about like what are some misconceptions about the museum? Is there?
I would say the question that we get asked the most is, so you're a forestry major? And we say, no, we're history people.
Got it.
Because it's a museum.
Right.
And we always think that that people like want to bring us their things to identify. They always call and say, "Hey, I've got this tree. Like, could you help me?" A man brought in a snake. To identify.
Nice.
Please don't bring your snakes.
That's awesome.
So all of the science that we've learned is like on the job.
Yeah.
And we're by far not great at it.
Right.
And if sometimes we'll do some sort of like host a homeschool group or a Boy Scout troop, and they need to earn their forestry badge where they identify trees. We bring in a forester for that because while our education coordinator, Caitlin, has learned a lot, we don't feel confident in being the expert.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have connections with that, but mainly what we're here for is the history.
Yeah.
We also get called because people want to buy seedlings. They want to buy lumber. They want to get in contact with some sort of working sawmill. And we're like, well, this is the museum. And they're like, yes.
Yeah, it sounds like the calls we get at the chamber.
Yes.
Yeah.
Out of the
called
blue.
The chamber.
Yes. So we have a whole list of like the U.S. Forest Service, the Texas Forest Service, Parks and Rec. And I think that the little building that's our office used to be like a Parks and Rec or a U.S. Forest Service building because people come in all the time and they remember it and they want to like renew their license. But we acquired that in the 90s. So their memory of that is very old.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's awesome.
What's on the horizon for the museum? I know I'm putting you on the spot with that, and we can edit it out if it's not anything. But what would you like to see?
Well, what we're focused on right now is outdoor lighting. We've got like one kind of security light in the parking lot. And we've got some floodlights on the back of the building that we can turn on for events, special, but it only kind of reaches to our picnic tables. So it kind of really limits what we can do in the evenings.
Yeah.
And so we're requesting grant money right now from local foundations, and it will provide light for our nature playscape. So it will help us to host larger events in the evening because we can go further from the building. And really when we host events, our main goal is to do them outside because inside it's just so tight. We'll pull it inside if it's raining to have the event instead of canceling it. But it's really best if we can do it outside. So the lights for the nature playscape, and then we're going to do lights on our parking lot. It's just all around safer to have people be able to see where they're driving on a late night event. Plus, these lights are just going to make our campus a lot safer in the night when we're not there.
Well, and you have a great event, Feast in the Forest.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us about that event?
Sure.
And when it is? And
Feast in the Forest. It's our annual fundraiser. It's our only community fundraiser, and it's on August 5th this year, and we have it at the museum. So we used to have it off campus, and we figured out that a lot of the people that came to support us, that was the only time they were making a connection with us. Right. And so we wanted to bring it back to the museum so that they could see it, and then in turn, it domino into something more. Like they were like, oh, this is so great. Let me bring my kids or my grandkids back. And so we've moved it to the museum, and this year it's a normal, like, food, silent auction, dessert auction type of event, but you mill around in the exhibits while you do it. And this year, though, because we've got the renovations, we wanted to do something that like made us stand out from other fundraisers. Everyone's looking for their thing. And so we're going to give people tours this year.
Nice.
So everyone's going to go on a tour, and it's both a renovation kind of tour and a very, very small history tour.
Oh, cool.
And so when you first get there, you'll be able to get a drink, and then we'll have tour guides that are volunteers that will take you through. And we've recently read the book, The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker, which I highly recommend.
it's a great book.
We've even got ideas for like how to make our board meetings more intentional.
Yeah.
But it's about making that connection so that ultimately it's a fundraiser. We would like people to give us money so that we can continue our mission, but they're not going to give if they don't feel anything, and they're not going to come back if they didn't make that connection.
Right.
So we're trying to, through these tours, we're trying to like break people off into smaller groups, so that you have a better connection with what's happening here. I think sometimes people can just get lost in a large event, and plus they say like, oh, we're doing this so we can network, but you only talk to the people that you know, unless you're really out there like getting it done. So we'd like people to meet each other. It's such a unique event. It's the only event that blends this combination of the forest industry that's super supportive of us and the Lufkin community that's equally as supportive. Cool. So it's not a combination of people that you'll find anywhere else, and we want to use that to our advantage and to their advantage.
That's right.
So that they can make those connections, and then also make a better connection to us, and
cool.
hopefully turn that into something a bit more.
Nice. Well, mark your calendars.
Yes.
August the 5th for Feast in the Forest.
Feast in the Forest.
Yeah. Well, great.
How else can people support the museum? Obviously, come and check everything out, and I'm sure the people coming through the museum helps, and attending the fundraiser. But how can our listeners, if they want to support the museum, how can they do that?
Sure. We are a nonprofit. So what I tell people is that means we're very good at being poor. We will always accept donations.
Sure.
And so although we don't have an admission fee, we do have a donation box at the door. So people are always willing to donate there. And then we do have a small gift shop. And Jessica, our gift shop manager, has done a very good job of, we're trying to turn it into like a locally handcrafted items sort of a place. Yeah. We do still have like the little kind of plastic frogs and snakes that kids really like that are 30 cents. And when you can't get your kid out, or if they want to spend their own money, but they don't have a lot, they can still buy those little things. Sure. But she's really done a good job of making sure we've got like wood cheese boards that local people have made, or we've got a good relationship with a local wood turner, and he makes wood tumbler, like coffee tumblers for us, or ice cream scoops with wooden handles. And we've started working with a local artist, and she does prints from like paintings from historic photos. So it's just kind of unique things that
if you're looking for a unique gift that is
stop on in
to this area.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then we also have our membership. So we have a set of donors that give to us once a year. You can do this through our website at truetexas.com. And it's just an annual giving that these people see that it's really important that they, continue our mission and our efforts. So you can always give through that.
Well, awesome. Well, great. Well, we thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. We really appreciate the time and learning about the museum. And we want to thank you so much for listening to the podcast again this week. We're just so blown away by the support that we've received with this podcast, and we really enjoy putting this podcast together every single week and interviewing somebody in our community who is doing something great or a great organization. And if you'll do us a huge favor and rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening on whatever podcatcher or software you're using, that would be a huge benefit to the podcast to help other people find it. Also, if you want to catch the video version of this podcast, it's available on the Chamber YouTube page and on the Chamber Facebook page. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.